You know this question. We've all been there, right? You're just trying to log into your email, maybe buy a concert ticket, or just leave a comment, and suddenly, bam! The internet grinds to a halt to ask you this one simple, but also kind of deep question.
And then you get this, a completely jumbled, twisted up mess of letters and numbers. You find yourself squinting, tilting your head. Is that a Q or a G? An L or a 1? Yep, this is it. The internet's most, let's be honest, annoying gatekeeper.
So today, let's actually pull back the curtain on this thing. We're going to demystify this universal frustration that we all share. We'll break down what a CAPTCHA actually is, why in the world we even need it, and get into the wild story of how it's in this constant battle with the very machines it's designed to stop.
All right, so to really get our hero, you first have to meet the villain of the story. And believe it or not, the villain isn't the CAPTCHA. Nope. It's the whole reason we need a gatekeeper in the first place, the automated bot.
These bots, they are just relentless. They're basically little automated programs built to cause chaos. I'm talking flooding comment sections with spam, creating thousands upon thousands of fake accounts, trying to guess your password over and over, even scraping a website's entire database. Seriously, without some kind of gatekeeper, the internet would just be an absolute mess.
And that brings us to our, well, let's call it a reluctant hero, the CAPTCHA. Think of it like a digital bouncer at the door of a club, just trying its best to separate the real people from all those automated troublemakers.
You know, it's actually an acronym, and it's a bit of a mouthful. Get ready. It stands for Completely Automated Public Turing Test to tell computers and humans apart. Whoa. But the most important part is right there in the name. Its whole job, its entire reason for being, is to create a test that's super easy for a person like you, but really, really hard for a machine.
At its heart, the whole process is pretty simple. Step 1, the website gives you a little challenge. Step 2, you give it an answer. Step 3, the system checks if you got it right. If you did, hey, congratulations, you've proven you're human. For now, the door swings open. And if not, well, you're blocked. Okay, but this is where the story gets really, really interesting. Because this isn't a one-and-done thing. The history of CAPTCHA is this wild, constantly evolving arms race. It's like a giant game of cat and mouse. As soon as a new, clever test is created, the bots immediately start figuring out how to beat it.
And the very first line of defense was just brilliant in its simplicity. Just distort some text. See, our brains are incredible pattern recognition machines. We can look at warped, squiggly letters and just read them. But back then, computer programs, they were completely stumped.
And this right here perfectly shows you that arms race in action. Humans could read the text, no problem. But then, the bots evolved. They developed something called optical character recognition, or OCR, which in a nutshell taught them how to read text from an image. And just like that, the bots started passing the test.
So the game was up. The gatekeepers had to get way smarter. That simple text test just wasn't cutting it anymore. It was time for a whole new generation of challenges to try and stay one step ahead of these bots that were getting smarter by the day.
And that's what led to all the different kinds of CAPTCHAs you see all the time now. You know the ones, select all the images with traffic lights. Or a simple math problem like what's 8 plus 5? You've also got audio tests for accessibility. And even those little puzzles where you have to drag a piece to fit just right. Every single one was a brand new attempt to ask a question that, hopefully, only a human could answer.
But the arms race just kept going. Artificial intelligence started getting incredibly good, like shockingly fast. Suddenly, AI could recognize images, solve those math problems, and analyze audio better than ever. The bots were catching up, again. And even these more complicated tests started to become vulnerable.
So the entire strategy had to shift. A complete 180. Instead of actively asking you a question, the new approach was to just watch how you behave. And this led to a total game changer, the invisible test.
Now, this is a completely different way of thinking. You know that little "I'm not a robot" checkbox? The real test isn't you clicking the box. It's how you moved the mouse to get there. Was the path a little shaky and human-like, or was it perfectly straight and robotic? A bot's movement is a dead giveaway. And the newest version, reCAPTCHA v3, takes this even further. It's often completely invisible, just watching your behavior on the site in the background and giving you a risk score. It only even shows you a challenge if you start acting suspicious.
Which brings us all the way back to that feeling of annoyance, right?
Okay, so we get why it exists now. But is this digital bouncer really worth all the hassle? Especially when you think about how incredibly difficult, sometimes impossible, these tests can be for people with visual impairments or other disabilities. So let's actually look at the trade-offs here.
Yeah, it's definitely a balancing act. On the one hand, you've got this powerful shield that stops a constant flood of automated attacks. It protects websites, it protects us from spam and fraud. But on the other hand, there's the human cost. The sheer frustration of failing a test over and over. The way it just slows everything down. And, really importantly, the very real barriers it puts up for people with disabilities. And here's the kicker. The most advanced AI, it can still sometimes get past.
So I guess the big takeaway is this. CAPTCHA is a really imperfect solution to a really massive problem. For right now, it's a kind of necessary evil, a little bit of friction that we all have to deal with to keep the internet from being completely overrun by bots.
So is there a way to make this whole thing less annoying? Well, for one, website developers can use the more modern, invisible versions. But, that opens up a whole other can of worms about privacy, since it's basically tracking how you behave online. What's absolutely critical is that there always have to be accessible options, like audio challenges. And really, it's about not relying on just one thing. CAPTCHA should be just one layer of security, not the whole castle.
And all of this leaves us with one last big question to think about. In this never-ending arms race, what happens when AI gets so good that it's basically impossible to tell it apart from a human? How will we prove we're not a robot then? What on earth will the next gatekeeper even look like?